I coach a lot of clients both directly and through our program, Tech Sales Ascension, and I'm seeing a trend more and more, especially with the very difficult job market right now, where candidates are taking good situations in later stage interviews and actually overcomplicating and doing too much, which at the end of the day actually makes you look worse. So I want to talk through one of the most common mistakes I'm seeing right now more than I ever have, because in many situations, I think the inclination when you're breaking in is to show that you're willing to go above and beyond. But the way in which you do that is not by sending necessarily more information or by doing 10 times what they asked for. And again, the important takeaway from this video is not going to be like, don't go above and beyond, don't do something extra. But again, I think oftentimes people overcomplicate how powerful it is to do exactly what the interviewer asked you at a very high level. And so I just want to create a couple of different scenarios and give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Really, as you approach a later stage interview with any type of tech company, they're going to give you some type of exercise. So that may be company research, that may be drafting an email like you're cold emailing a prospect, maybe simulating a cold call, and or even doing something like as extensive as a discovery call. Now, if you've never done these things, that's totally okay, and there's lots of resources out there to help you with that process. But I think people overcomplicate and they'll get this information and they're already thinking about, how do I do this and really wow them and blow them away? And if you've never been in a sales situation or sales environment, the inclination is to do like, what else can I do? What else can I bring to the table? Instead of actually doing exactly what they asked very, very well. And let's just take a step back and think about what this means in a broader context. As you get into sales, one of the most difficult things is, especially early on, if a customer says they want to buy and they're ready to move forward, you don't say anything else. You stop right there, you send them the proposal, you get them to sign, you don't worry about any other details once they have agreed to move forward. And again, I don't want to overcomplicate this or draw this out too much, but if an interviewer is asking you to make a sample email, if they're asking you to do a mock cold call, there are a lot of things that you can do to impress them in terms of maybe writing it out in depth, explaining the logic behind the email, but sending them things that they didn't ask for, and or coming to the table with maybe a new idea of how they could do things differently, particularly if you do not have sales experience. These things can more often than not actually backfire because they may perceive it the wrong way. Everyone that's trying to break into sales and is getting to final stage interviews is very ambitious. But again, especially at the entry level, it's not like you have to, totally take it from the man and just do exactly what they say. But again, think about the fact that if they ask you to do something like a cold email exercise and you're sending them a bunch of extra documentation that they didn't ask for, you're making their lives more complicated, and you're showing that when you're in the role that you have the potential for them to ask you to do something, and then you take it and do something completely different or do way more than you should have to get the same result. And so again, I don't want to be too caught up on one specific example here, but the point being is, while your inclination to show your drive, to show how much you're willing to go above and beyond is great, you don't necessarily show that by sending them random things. You show that by doing what they ask very, very well. And then once you've done that well, you may uncover things that the average candidate did not. So as an example, working with someone recently, they were asked to do some research on accounts, write emails, and they did a great job. But again, when you get that information, now the inclination is to say, what else can I send? Versus going deeper on all that information that you have. Again, just stating the exercise, it was research a handful of accounts, write an email to one of those accounts, right? You know how you will impress them is not by showing up with 100 accounts. It's by coming to the exercise and interview with research that you've done on the number of accounts that they asked for, but having very detailed and precise insights on those individual companies. Because a lot of people will say, hey, I know we're selling a database and Shopify has to use a database, so that's why I chose them, right? That's not a very good insight. I mean, sure, yeah, they need a database and it makes sense to reach out to their VP of engineering, but really outside of that, like what else is that going to do? Like your insight that a company uses a database is not unique in any way, shape, or form. And so my point being is, instead of saying, oh, they asked me to get 5 of this, or they asked me to write an email, I'm gonna get 20 of these and I'm gonna write 15 emails to really impress them. Do what they asked really, really well, and then you earn the right to maybe add additional insight. So when you're researching accounts for the sake of an exercise, it's not just saying, hey, Shopify has a database. It's saying, hey, I noticed that Shopify has announced that they're doing a large migration to a cloud native stack as an example. They've allocated this amount of budget. I looked in their quarterly report, or I saw their CTO on LinkedIn announce that they're allocating this new round of funding to 30% of $100 million towards tech modernization, right? These are the type of insights that almost every candidate is not going at the depth to find. And so if you show up and you have 5 very detailed researched accounts, as opposed to coming up and saying, hey, here's 100 accounts. I know you asked for 5, but I wanted to show you I'll go above and beyond. The person who's actually researching 5 accounts at such incredible depth that they found exactly why the product that you'd sell is going to be beneficial is way more valuable than the person that can show that they can research just 100 companies and say, oh, they use tech, they might need our product, right? You see where I'm going with this? And again, just stepping back, there's 2 major things that this does when you go above and beyond in a way that is not actually complementary to what they're asking of you. So for instance, let's say they give you a ask to write an email, right? And you want to send something like a 30, 60, 90 if you've seen a video like I made in the past or otherwise, and they didn't ask you to send that at all. A manager who's very busy interviewing multiple different candidates, handling their own day-to-day work that has nothing to do with interviewing candidates, when you send them extra information that they didn't ask for, there's usually 2 to 3 things that are going to happen. They're gonna get this information and be like, oh, that's weird, I didn't ask him for that. I'll just talk to him soon in our upcoming interview, and it doesn't do anything. The negative side is you don't control that message, and they may say, wait, why are they sending me this? And then they start to read it, and they find something that they don't agree with or is very confusing when you previously, leading up to that, had a great reputation. Now you send something they didn't ask for, and they're gonna see that and think, wait, like why did they send this? And that's weird, I don't agree with that. And now, not only did they not ask for it, and now they're reading, you don't control the message. So when they're reading this, they're gonna interpret however they may, and without you having the ability to walk them through your thought process, there's actually more downside than upside in just showing that you're very prepared. But additionally, going back to my original point and why I think this is so important, again, like I mentioned in the past example, it's weighing the upside versus the downside. When you're sending things that they don't necessarily ask for, the downside is that they may not care, they may see it and they may interpret something negatively that otherwise, if you were on the phone and walking them through it, would actually be a great point. And or, I think lastly, and arguably most importantly, especially at the entry level of sales, is you're showing them that if they ask you to do something, you're not necessarily gonna do what they ask. And again, it's not like you have to go into an environment and you have to do everything that your manager says, but think about the manager's perspective. They are busy. They need team members who can come in and execute, especially early on. If this is your first ever SDR job, they want someone who can come in, mimic the top performers, and over time begin to develop their own style. Not someone that's coming in and just with no perspective or vantage point whatsoever saying, hey, I know you guys do this, but I really think you could do this. And when you take those types of chances, there's a small chance you might be right. There's a small chance that might be impressive, but unless you have extensive sales experience, unless what you're saying is coming from a very, very well-informed point of view, there's way more downside to trying to go above and beyond in a way that doesn't suit what they're asking you to do, when instead, you could focus on the original exercises they're giving you and perform at the highest level above any other candidate. And again, just circling back on what that actually means. If they're asking me to do a cold call and call into this target account, you're researching public statements, you're researching earning reports, you're researching LinkedIn profiles of some of their top executives to see if you can find any insights that align well with the product. You're researching announcements on maybe they're expanding their presence or maybe they're moving from Amazon's cloud to Google, right? You find any different insight that most candidates are not willing to take the time or don't even know how to even find that information in the first place. And that is how you impress someone as opposed to just showing that you can do a lot of volume. Really get high quality insights, really dive deep. And then again, maybe they ask you for more information or maybe they ask you for a nuanced insight, but you've earned the right by doing exactly what they asked incredibly well. And you have this extra information like a 30, 60, 90, like other insights on types of companies they could sell to, and you have it prepared, but you only offer it if you've performed well and you've earned the right to even ask them about new ways they could sell and beyond. So I hope that helps. And again, the point of this video is not to say don't go above and beyond, but really contextualize what that means. Really think about a manager from their perspective. They're so busy, they have so many things going on, they have to invest a lot of time in new employees in the first place. So if you're not even showing that you can do what they asked at a very high level, why do they want to move forward with you? Because they realize what a hassle it's going to be to make you focus on the core competency of the job itself. But again, if you have any questions, comment below. And if you haven't seen our new bootcamp, Tech Sales Ascension, there's also more information in the description below where we offer live coaching, not just from me, but a group of mentors that are actively employed in tech sales. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, I look forward to discussing in the comments or beyond, and we'll see you in our next video. Thanks.